exciting Thursday here on the morning show, and you know what that means? Thursday means it's book club time, and as we wrap up the month of March, William went down to the book circle capital to link up with Sewela Langeni, who shared with us some of her reads for the month of March. Let's watch.
Right, welcome back to another edition of the TMS Book Club from the Book Circle Capital here in Melville. We are sitting down with Sewela, who is also the co-founder, and she runs this place. Aussie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
I imagine there's a lot of history that South Africa needs to tell, not only to the Gen Zs of the world, but to even ourselves, because there isn't a lot that is documented about South Africans for South Africans, which is why we've got these set of books today. Where do we start?
We start with The Lost Prince of the ANC. It's the story of Jabulani Nobleman Mzala Nxumalo by Mandla J. Khatebe. It's a book that was launched actually here about a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago.
Sure.
So it's a book that talks about the life of Mzala Nxumalo. So in telling his story, you get to understand the context of South Africa at the time, and you get a deep history of, you know, ANC, SACP. Then he died very young, at the age of 35 in exile, and you know, through telling his story, Mandla does a good job in explaining South African history at the time. He does a good job in explaining the history of the ANC, you know, a party that now we've become to have lots of questions about it as a country. And a lot of the things he wrote about then are issues that are now in question, you know, serving the people. We know the abject poverty that our country, most of the people in our country are still living in, and those are some of the issues he raises. So this one is hot off the press right now. It was launched like early this year, and so far it's making lots of waves in chronicling the life of Jabulani Nobleman Mzala Nxumalo.
And we know Mzala Nxumalo. I mean, there are streets named after him. There are even hoods and areas in South Africa named after him.
Yes.
But there isn't a lot available in as far as text is concerned that you can go pick up and check. So that's great that we've got that
This
now.
book adds to that library, and hopefully from here there's more. You know, he lived 1955 to 1991. So, and it's amazing that such a young life could have so much gravity, and hopefully there's more written about him and others of his time.
Awesome stuff. I'm going to enjoy reading that.
Yeah.
So I imagine there are a lot of these books now, and you know, a lot of people are inspired to start documenting our history.
Yes.
The Legend of Zola Mahobe and the Mamelodi Sundowns story. Interesting book. The little that I know, because I'm a sports fan, Mamelodi Sundowns, before it became this huge enterprise across the continent that it is now, it once was a club that was bought for 100,000 rand by one Zola Mahobe.
Yes, and this book, So Racy, by Don Lepati and Nicholas Knikis. Nicholas writes a lot about sports, so this is his latest edition together with Don Lepati. It's about Zola Mahobe. I mean, Zola was like a gangster way back when, you know, but when I read reviews and also when I went through it, it reminded me of the whole Robin Hood thing, where, you know, rob from the rich to share with the poor, because he spent a lot of money on his players. He even took them to London for the FA Cup, and the money was taken from like a deal that he had with his girlfriend, you know, where she worked for a bank, and he devised a scheme to steal money from the bank, and the bank didn't realize until it was very late. It was a story of aspiration, because he owned a club during apartheid, you know, he owned a soccer club, and they lived a good life. You know, there was that aspiration thing where people were looking up to him and thinking, how does he do it? Years later we realized, okay, there was criminal element involved, but you know, he was all about, you know, inspiring people then.
There was a greater good to that
end. So this is a good read, a fast-paced read, exciting read. More, you know, when you see a criminal element person, those stories, in as much as there's the moral element of it, but there's that excitement of it to say, wow, you know, someone had the guts to do something like that.
There's this now, freedom writer, Juby Myatt, My Life and Times. What is she talking about?
Judy Mayet is a journalist that had a career of spanning over 50 years. This book addresses this issue of erasure, you know, of women in the history of South Africa. So, and it's the same, unfortunately, with a lot of contribution of what women have done in South African history. So Judy Mayet, I love that Jakana has been able to do this book about her life.
Sure.
And she lived until she was 80. I mean, she died recently, I think it was 2019. But she was a journalist at that time, and her writing was challenging the apartheid government. She even faced, you know, banning at some point. And she grew up in the fiestas in Johannesburg. They were relocated with this whole, you know, spatial planning where the nicer places were given to white people.
Yeah.
So this is mainly a celebration of a time and making sure that she gets her rightful place in history. She's opened the doors for so many female journalists to come, but that wasn't known. But now we can pick up a book about Judy Mayet. You know, when I found out, I was very excited.
I love that. And the drum story is so important for South African writers and journalists because people that worked and started the magazine, you know, it gave birth to things like Bo Sowetan, Bo True Love, what it is now. And other titles like that started from the rooms, the newsrooms of what Drum Magazine was back in the days. You know, very important. I love this. Okay, let's talk about this one. Noni Jabavu. What's this about?
So Noni Jabavu, similar to Mejubi, is also a journalist. She was exiled. She comes from a powerful family in South African history, political and religious and education. So her father is DDT Jabavu and her great-grandfather is JT Jabavu. So if you read about them in the history of the ANC, in the history of this country, you will find those names. But her name wasn't mentioned. You hear her as a, you know, side note, but I love that Dr. Atambile Masola and Professor Makosa Zanatlaba have now done this piece of work for us. So Noni, also because of the exile, she lived a lot abroad. She came back to South Africa, I think in 1977. So that's why it says A Stranger at Home. She was the first black woman to be published. She published 2 books, memoirs about her life story, you know, living outside South Africa and also living back in South Africa and feeling like, you know, where do you belong? So this is a compilation of her articles, the way she wrote. I mean, she wrote very well. She highlights issues about women at the time. She highlights issues of belonging. She highlights issues of, you know, the struggle for apartheid. So why I'm excited about a book like this is we've heard so much about the name Noni Jabavu, but not a lot of content around it. When she was not even in the country, she was writing. So she knows how to write. And this is something where when we're doing a course in journalism in South Africa, we should have some reference to her work, you know, and we should be seeing more of this stuff prescribed into our education.
I love it. Noni Jabavu. A Stranger at Home. You need to go and get it. Ushapile Lady Curls. We need the curls too. I got you. That wraps up our edition namhlanje TMS Book Club Konala at the Book Circle Capital. All of these books are about important South Africans, you know, history makers that we in the modern day South Africa have had to literally sacrifice their lives for you and I to be here today. So go out and get these books and we'll see you on the next one.